Hi, I'm Bethany.
And I'm Jody, and in this video, we will explain some of the errors that can result from implicit memory. What is implicit memory? Implicit memory is our unconscious memory. It uses past experience to remember how to do things without thinking about it. Things like driving a car, riding a bike, or getting dressed.
Implicit memory is often described as memory without awareness, and it is measured by indirect memory testing. This type of testing measures behaviors that are influenced by a prior event that the participant doesn't explicitly remember. Lexical decision tasks are examples of indirect memory testing. Implicit memory is often experienced as a sense of familiarity. Something rings a bell, but you can't identify the source of that memory. This feeling of familiarity can be attributed to processing fluency. A stimulus that we have encountered before will be easier to perceive because that processing pathway will be more quickly activated when we encounter it again. The way that a person interprets their sense of familiarity can have a big impact on their response to the stimulus in question. It is possible that they will figure out the source of their familiarity, like seeing a familiar face and remembering that you know that person from school. But there are errors that can also result from the feeling of familiarity. It can be problematic if a person misinterprets their sense of familiarity. Our first example of an error that can result from implicit memory is the false fame effect. In a landmark study by Jacoby, Kelly, Brown, and Jaseszko, participants were likely to rate non-famous names as famous simply because they had been exposed to them once before. The explanation for this is that the names, although not famous, felt familiar, and the participants misattributed their sense of familiarity to the famousness of the name.
You may be wondering why research such as this is important. Well, we've seen these same effects of attributing implicit memory to the wrong source translate to brand familiarity and eyewitness testimonies. Holden and Van Huel predicted the false fame effect would extend to brand familiarity in a pharmaceutical context. They found the false fame effect extends to brand familiarity, which affects us as consumers. Hearing a pharmaceutical brand only one time produces familiarity, and if the context of the exposure is forgotten, it can lead to the belief that the brand is a well-known, reliable brand. This is problematic if the brand is not effective or reputable.
Another example of an error that can result from implicit memory is the illusion of truth. This is a phenomenon in which statements that have been heard before are judged as being more credible than new statements. In this case, the feeling of familiarity results in a judgment of credibility. Even if a statement is presented as false, this effect will emerge, and this can have some serious repercussions in real life. Skernick, Yoon, Park, and Schwartz designed an experiment to observe the effects of repeated false claims on implicit memory. They also aimed to determine if the effects of the false claims were more significant for older people than younger people. In their study, participants were exposed to statements about health and medicine that were labeled either as true or false. They were shown some of the statements once and others 3 times. The results of the study indicated that the older individuals were much more likely to judge a repeated false statement as true after a 3-day delay. Another example is source confusion. Source confusion occurs when a person correctly identifies a stimulus as familiar, but attributes that familiarity to the wrong source. Some of the strongest examples of source confusion occur when witnesses are asked to identify the perpetrators of crimes in a lineup. Studies have shown that being exposed to a person's mugshot prior to a lineup can cause a witness to incorrectly identify that person as the perpetrator of a crime. The witness assumes that the sense of familiarity they feel seeing the person in the lineup is because the person committed the crime, when really it is due only to the exposure to their mugshot.